Hey crew, how are we doing? Okay, this is going to be a good one. Been waiting to do this for a little bit. We're going to have a look at Brooks Koepka's short game and his bunker play in particular. And we're doing it with his short game coach, Jeff Pearce, who's the director of instruction at Jeff Pearce Golf Academy or Golf Schools, and his assistant, his right-hand man, Atticus Belen. So this is going to be super cool. So welcome, boys.
Hey, Ben.
Thanks for having us, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really excited to do this because I think, we had a quick chat about this previously, but this is a part of Brooks's game. Like, he's always been able to power it down there with his long stuff, like just hammers driver, obviously long, amazing iron player and stuff like that. But his short game's been something that's been a little bit of a struggle. So we're going to jump in and have a good look at this. It'd be amazing to see what you've done, Jeff.
Sure.
Okay, Jeff. So this is going to be really interesting because the reason I wanted to actually have a look at his bunker stuff initially is because what we know he is amazing at is just pounding that ball down there with his irons and driver, 3-wood. He goes into a lot of flexion on the way down. He shuts the club and it comes out with huge amounts of velocity and power. Trying to translate that into bunker play can be really, really difficult because traditionally we know in bunkers, you've got lots of loft on the club and you want it to come out softly. And his wrist angles and his club face traditionally don't lend themselves to that. So what have you done to counteract that?
You hit it right on the head. He's been an incredible ball striker in the sense of being able to create a lot of speed. And that usually translates for a lot of players into struggling to slow it down. So a lot of the work that I do out there with PGA Tour players and high-level players are guys in his category, right? So if we have to first understand what makes him good at moving it fast so we can understand how to change that. So we understand that he moves the ball fast because if the guys out there that don't understand maybe what spin loft is a fancy word for how far apart angle of attack is down and loft is up, right? So to move the golf ball at a faster ball speed, we want to see angle of attack and loft close together, right? So we think driver, we might hit 2 degrees up on it. We might have 10 degrees of loft as we hit that. So there's only 8 degrees between those two things. So there's not a big angle there. So the ball speed, we get a lot of energy and the ball speed goes fast and it doesn't spin very much. That's fantastic for moving it a long way. It's the worst thing possible when we're greenside and we're trying to hit bunker shots and we're trying to hit soft spinny shots. So what we have to take this player's understanding towards is that they want the ball to go higher. They've always wanted the golf ball to go higher. It's been a struggle for them. And they changed the wrong piece. They end up trying to change the angle of attack. They try to shallow out to make it go higher. And they actually make it harder to slow the ball down and spin it. So what we've done in setup there is you see that ball's very forward. And if you look, he's got a tremendous amount of loft there, and he's just regripped the club back into his normal grip. And this is something that's unique to guys that have such a strong pattern of that flexion of the lead wrist and why they move it so fast. They're not really comfortable seeing that lead wrist go into extension and adding loft and opening the face. So we'll take that player and we'll start the club with loft so he can regrip it normally. And that's why when you take him to the top of the backswing and down the line, you don't see extension. You actually still see a pretty normal backstroke for him, but the loft's there. The face is certainly lofted. We can't go down the road with a player like that to get loft through changing the wrist angles. It's just simply not going to happen out of that guy. Scott Stallings, another guy that I did a lot of work with in the past, extremely similar patterns. So what we have to do, we get the loft and we regrip the club. So we've taken care of that top part of spin loft. So we've got loft way up here. Now we look at the face-on setup and go, he's tilted a significant amount forward. His pressure is forward. We're going to get the angle of attack from setup and that pressure staying forward. So if he's tilted towards the target, he's generally going to have a descending blow, which is necessary for any player out of bunkers or trying to hit high soft shots. We need angle of attack down. It's one of the biggest factors of being able to slow the golf ball down. We need angle of attack down and we need loft up. The farther apart I can get those two things, the slower I can move the golf ball. And if the loft is up, it ultimately launches higher. So it's sort of a counterintuitive thing for a lot of players to think to hit a high soft bunker shot or even off grass. it's necessary that my angle of attack is steep for the right reason. And that's the tricky part with a lot of the guys, is getting that angle of attack down without them actually de-lofting it again.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing, like just for the average player, when they're thinking about taking a lot of sand or having that descending attack angle, I think they often forget the loft piece, don't they? They just try and hit down, take a lot of sand. They dig the front edge in. But the reason this doesn't dig in, obviously, is because of that loft as well. So it's that, it's a double bonus, really, isn't it? So he's really, the back of the club is hitting the ground here, but the back of the club is hitting the sand with a descending attack angle.
Correct.
So it's
correct.
Not, it's not the.
Yeah, and you'll notice on that right view there, contrary to what a lot of instruction is, and in some cases successful for a lot of players, you don't see a slicing motion in this bunker shot. You'll actually, again, the target there being the flag on the right. Now, the path would certainly be inward relative to his body alignments, but it is actually, the 3D path is downward, but actually relatively neutral towards that flag. And the loft, although the face has been opened, you'll notice the grip is down. That brings the loft on top of 3D path. So now what we have a situation where I've got angle of attack down, I've got loft really high, and they're actually both pointed at the target so that he's not going to see the ball check to the right or check to the left. That actually comes down softly and releases pretty neutrally. It's one of the reasons he's gotten more and more up and down into the bunker, is he's not hitting hard spinning shots off to the right or not getting spin. He gets an appropriate amount of flight, appropriate amount of spin, but they release straight. They're very calm when they land and they release straight. He actually holes a few more shots off the green, actually in the high soft shots, more than he does the normal one. We've obviously spent a little bit more time specifically on these, and he's doing a really good job, and we're continuing to work on it. He wants to get more and more comfortable doing basically the exact same thing off of hard grass, off hard tight lies, because it's the correct answer to spin it and control flight directionally, which is the biggest piece for him.
Well, let me, I might actually grab out his footage from off the grass if you want, so we can sort of make a comparative
Absolutely.
look. Yeah, let's just grab those out.
Okay.
Okay, so here we've got him off the grass. And the one thing I sort of didn't really talk about either with the bunkers, but something you definitely notice in both of them, his knee flex is probably just so much greater, isn't it, than it would be with these irons? Is that's something that helps with the angle of attack and getting the face a bit more open?
It does. Let me borrow a wedge real quick here. Okay, what we're doing is that any club on its normal lie angle. Let's see. I think I've got a 60-degree wedge here. So there's 60 degrees loft pointed right at the camera right there. If I open this club up, trying to get loft, there's way more loft, but the true loft is pointed out here to the open side. So we're going to lower the shaft as we open it. So the three-dimensional loft is certainly higher, but it's back pointed at the target. That's why you're going to see that knee flex. You're going to see the grip lower, so that as he opens the face, if I don't change lie angle, my face is just pointed to the open side. So he's got to lower that shaft. Now I've got my loft back at the target.
And so this is more stuff where you're actually affecting the loft and the ability to maintain loft without changing his wrist angles, which you said is something that scares the living daylights.
Not going to happen. Yeah, it's just not going to change. Yeah.
Okay, that's a really, really cool demo. All right, let me just grab that pitching motion back up again. Okay, that's a really, really cool explanation. So let's chat about this. This has obviously been, you were saying, 4 or 5 years ago, this was the weakest part of his game, but now it's like getting
by far.
One of the strongest. So chat to me about it. Talk to me.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like we were talking about in bunker play, he's got a natural ability to move the golf ball fast. And that turned into extremely limited arsenal of shots when it needed to be slow. He couldn't chip it over. He couldn't chip it over a bucket of balls when he first got on tour. He couldn't hit it that high and figure out where it was going. He had no understanding of how to slow the golf ball down and hit it high. So this is at Medalist. This was actually right before, a couple of days before the bunker shots at Congaree in South Carolina at the event. We've been working on that pretty hard this summer to really continue his comfortability in doing this. It's not that he can't sit here and do this the whole time. He's got to continue to understand with his variables of what he likes to do, how it's available to him to deliver loft and get comfortable with. He knows it's going really, really down. He knows we're actually increasing angle of attack in these shots. And the part that he doesn't quite feel super, super comfortable with is that's not making a big divot. He's used to, when he's hitting golf shots, I mean, he is by nature, when he's hitting a 7-iron, for example, this guy's not afraid of 8 or 9 and even 10 degrees down angle of attack if he's going to do anything other than a normal shot. So he's not unfamiliar with the angle of attack. He's unfamiliar with how we're getting angle of attack while having loft. So, we're understanding, if you look right, that's actually a perfect view there on the left. As you're going through impact, we're not seeing as much shaft lean for a couple of reasons. The ball's forward. We're asking him to shorten up the radius of his hand pass. So he's not stretching out the hands towards the target. We're actually asking him at that point, as you continue, the elbows will fold. The wrists have softened. He's actually shortening how long that club will travel out so that the club head can pass the grip a little more casually. You're certainly not going to see that when he's smashing 7-iron, right? That's going to lengthen out. He's going to actually kick back into a little bit of right bends so he can keep it de-lofted longer and move the ball at a really, really high speed. So he's really learning. He's like, it's interesting working with a guy like that, because when he starts learning something, he's all in. It's all he wants to do is hit a bunch of wedge shots and learn. Whereas before he's going to avoid it. It's not something he's great at. It's not fun. When they start getting intrigued. It's fun for me because they start asking fun questions, and it's the opportunity. You've got narrow windows sometimes with really skilled players to get them to believe they can do something different. So it's been a lot of fun teaching him how to manage, spin loft, angle of attack, and loft. That's all you are as far as the ball knows.
And super interesting. So, and as you sort of described, he's not used to, pardon me, he's not used to the club coming in with so much loft and the back of the club being, more towards the ground. He's very much like the front edge comes in, 10 degrees down, takes that divot. How does that then affect what the bounce is, and what sort of grinds does he use? And have you had an influence on that? Or do you feel like if you get this technique right, it doesn't really matter too much? Like you can use any bounce and sort of work with it?
Yeah, I would say that for your average player that doesn't have the tendencies that he has with keeping it de-lofted, most players are going to have a little bit wider range of shapes and styles of bounce that are going to be successful. I actually ground a wedge for him, I think in like 2000, maybe 13 or 14. It's the old Titleist T grind. It's not a lot of bounce at all, but it's a fairly wide sole. So he can really open it up and it stays down, which is the only way. If you give that guy that needs to open it so much and he's got a lot of bounce, it's obviously going to sit way too off the ground and he's going to freak out and try and de-loft it to get the contact. So we've got a pretty unique sole, and we gave that to Aaron Dill on the Titleist Tour van, and he's copied it and ground a bunch of them. But it's a fair amount of heel relief. So when he does open it, it still sits down, but it's a fairly wide sole. So a little bit unique to a guy that's generally going to be de-lofted, because he plays that a lot from, that 60, 70, 80 yard wedge shot a lot. He sticks with that lob wedge, so it's still got to be functional in the full shots too.
It's super cool. So you've literally created like the perfect golfer now, haven't you? You've created like you've got someone. No. But I suppose in terms of his like repertoire and his ability to, with the longer stuff, as you said, keep that spin loft down and pummel things out there and get it to go out hard and through the wind and long and all those things without too much spin. But now you've given him the exact opposite of that around the greens as well, where he's got, the ability to throw it up and soft. So that's pretty rare, I would say, that, a lot of guys are probably, they naturally are good out of their bunkers because they come down with the face pretty open in the first place or whatever it might be. But he's actually sort of adjusted, or he's been able to move from one to the other.
Yeah, I would say Atticus and I see it regularly with all sorts of golfers. If they're strong in one area, it generally translates into why they're strong in that area would be a disadvantage in another. You take a guy that's as talented as a Brooks Koepka or guys on that level, they're obviously there because they're extremely talented on one end of that game. And then if you can just help them understand and give them a little bit of it. They can't have a weakness. Yeah. So if you take the part that they struggled with and you at least bring it to average, they do really well. And then then it's on them. The talent level that they have, if it becomes a strength, then they don't have a weakness. I certainly haven't created a perfect golfer. Ferraris are Ferraris. I just maybe put brakes on it. Yeah, that's about all I did. That guy is unbelievably talented, and they're fun to work with. But you're 100% right. So golfers out there that have to realize if they're really good at hitting driver, for example, and then they go into their wedge play, and they're like, well, it's just it's a small golf swing. It's the same. It's not, and that's why you're still struggling. We have to, even as recreational golfers, understand why one area of the game. I'm trying to do something very different to the golf ball with the driver than I am even a 30, 40 yard pitch shot. I'm trying to spin it and slow it down. If I'm trying to do it with that driver, I'd be awful. We generally see like the 25, 30 handicapper gets it flip flop. They hit down on the driver with loft, right? It's slow and spinny. And then they get a wedge in their hand and they shallow it out and de-loft it. So if you could flip flop their ends of the game, they'd be a scratch golf. But it's how they solve the problem.
Interesting. Yeah, totally. I mean, we don't want to scare people out there and just say, like, there's so much work to do to become an elite golfer, but that is an awesome insight, Jeff. Like, that was really, I was loving listening to that, and we could probably talk forever about it, but we better wrap this up. But I know that you work with his putting as well, don't you?
Yeah. So we've done worked on his putting for about the same amount of time. Yeah, that's the same thing. His short game as a whole was the weakness. The putting was a lot easier. And I say that as a general statement to any golfer, especially club golfers out there. That's the easiest thing that you can improve because physical limitations really don't exist there. So it's more conceptual ideas of what's going on. If it's a physical stroke issue, some ideas on green reading, some ideas on speed. That's the easiest arena of the game to quickly affect because there's no physical barriers there.
Well, maybe next time we can have a look at that because, I found that super interesting. So next time, I'm sure that the viewers will absolutely love watching his putting because, that's one of the strengths. He doesn't have many weaknesses these days. So, that'd be cool to have a look at. Okay, boys, thank you so much for that. That's unbelievable. And look, we're super excited here at Skillest because we've got the two of you on the platform now. So to have, coaches of your caliber able to work with students all around the world, no matter where you live, is just, for us is really, really exciting. And for hopefully you, it's exciting. And there's no doubt students will be falling over themselves that have never been able to hit a bunker shot in their lives to be able to learn from you. So this is going to be great. So if you're out there and you want to learn from these two gentlemen, you can do that on Skillest. And then everyone can find you. You've just launched your socials, really, haven't you? And people can find you there. What are your socials?
Yeah, Atticus, he handles all that. So.
Yeah, it's at Learning Center _OS. So Learning Center at Old Stone. So you can find it all there.
All right, boys. Well, thank you so much for that, and let's do this again real soon.
Hey, thank you.